I never imagined that a poor girl could teach a millionaire's daughter the true meaning of life. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air was thick with tension when I walked through the gates of that extravagant mansion, where wealth glittered like the chandeliers above. I was the girl from the rundown neighborhood, and there she was, the princess in her castle, adorned in designer clothes that hugged her perfect figure. My heart raced. Could I even look her in the eye? She was throwing a party, but the laughter didn't reach my ears. It felt like a heavy blanket pressing down on my chest. Whispers followed me as I moved through the crowd. Look at her. How did she get in? Each word was another thorn in my already bruised soul. I stumbled into a conversation between her and her friends, their giggles sharp like glass. They were talking about the latest luxury vacation, the newest car, while I was just trying to figure out how to pay for my next meal, but then, I noticed something strange. In the midst of the laughter, she stood taller than the rest, but her eyes, they were distant, shadowed by something unseen. There was sadness behind that perfect facade. I felt a pull, a connection I couldn't explain. Could she be as trapped as I was? My gritty life shaped me. I watched my mother struggle every day, the lines on her face telling the stories of sacrifice. But every night, she'd smile at me, her eyes fierce with hope. You can do anything, my love, she'd whisper, filling my head with dreams that always felt just beyond reach. I learned to find beauty in the little things, a stray cat purring on my lap, the sweet scent of food cooking on a Sunday. I lived for those moments. As I faced the glaring contrast of this lavish world, I knew my heart was still beating with a rhythm of resilience. And this girl, pampered yet somehow empty, intrigued me. Suddenly, there was a crash, a sound that sliced through the murmurs. The room fell silent. All eyes turned toward her. Her drink spilled, sparkling champagne cascading like a waterfall over the marble floor. For a moment, time froze. Her face went pale. I felt my palms sweat, and my stomach twisted in knots. The room was closing in, breaths caught in throats. No one knew what to say, how to react. Would she laugh it off? But she stood frozen, her trembling hand reaching out as if asking for help. I felt an ache in my chest. I had witnessed her in all her grandeur, but here I saw another side. It was raw and frightening, like a flickering candle in a darkened hall. I was no longer just the poor girl, I was a bridge to a world of lessons yet to be learned. Did she know that the truest wealth wasn't in the glitter of diamonds but in the tears shed and the laughter shared? I couldn't help but take a step toward her. Would she let me break through the glass wall she had built? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Just as I believed I would reach her, a firm hand gripped my shoulder, pulling me back. What are you doing? It was one of her friends, a sharp-edged girl with perfectly curled hair that seemed poised to strike. The looming uncertainty in the air thickened, and I felt my heart drop. I stammered, but the words melted into silence. All around, giggles returned, laughter at my expense. I could almost feel the heat of their judgment radiate against my skin. My thoughts raced. This was my chance to connect, to understand her better. Who was I kidding? An invitation to this party was one thing, but an audience with her was a fantasy. Before I could gather my senses and retreat back into anonymity, I met her eyes. They were lost, swimming among an ocean of secrets. She mouthed something, a silent plea I couldn't decipher. It was both hopeful and disheartening, a flicker of connection in this sea of opulence that I turned to leave, but then I felt a small, desperate spark of courage igniting within me. I wouldn't be silenced. Ignoring the way the room sneered, I pushed through the crowd. The low hum of judgment faded as I focused solely on her. "Hey," I said softly, my voice steady despite the tremors in my heart. "It's okay. Let us just clean it up." Surprisingly, her lips curved into a small smile, one that somehow felt like sun breaking through a dense cloud. She nodded, and for the first time, the shimmer of vulnerability transformed her countenance. A mixture of relief surged between us, and together we knelt on the floor, gathering napkins to soak up the spilled champagne. "Thank you," she breathed, her calm voice a stark contrast to the chaos around us. That we sat there in quiet togetherness for a moment, the rest of the party seemingly forgotten. I wondered if she felt how different we were, how I belonged to a world where struggles were etched on every surface, while she lived in a realm where perfection shimmered yet felt hollow. "Are you always this clumsy?" I asked, unable to resist breaking the silence with a light tease, hoping to coax a laugh from her. To my surprise, a soft chuckle escaped her lips, scattering the tension like dust in the light. "Only when I'm nervous," she replied, her gaze suddenly intense, as if she were looking through me. Just then, a voice bubbled from the edge of the room shattered our moment. "What a lovely scene," her friend sneered from afar, arms crossed, eyes gleaming with derision. "Looks like the help has found their place." A dark wave of anger surged through me, mixed with a profound sadness. Here we were, sharing a moment of fragile understanding, yet the world around us echoed the bitterness of separation. I glanced at her. She looked wounded, the accusation hitting her like a slap across the face. "Don't listen to her," I whispered fiercely, my heart racing. "You're more than what they think. You're not just a princess, you're you." Her eyes flickered with something. Was it hope or fear? I couldn't tell. But before she could respond, her friend stormed closer. "Seriously, Lila, this isn't a charity event. You don't have to mingle with the riffraff." Lila's shoulders tensed, the warmth of our exchange shattered like glass. Her friend's words hung in the air, thick with disdain. The party resumed its cruel rhythm, laughter now bearing an edge as if mocking us both. I stood, grasping the fragile thread we had woven, and stepped back, my heart heavy. I had reached for her, but the barriers were too high. With each step away, the connection felt more distant, like waves crashing further on the shore, pulling away just as they bring life. But then she called after me, her voice barely above a whisper in the cacophony. "Wait." I turned, my heart racing with the possibilities of what she might say. I don't know how to do this." "I thought I had it all figured out," she said, her admission dripping with sincerity. "But all I have are diamonds and empty rooms. Maybe you could help me understand life outside." Her words hung between us like the fragile strands of a spider's web, beautiful yet precarious, ready to snap with any sudden movement. I felt a change rising in me, a warmth against the encroaching chill of her friend's laughter. "Let us meet tomorrow, away from here," I suggested, feeling a flicker of hope igniting in the depths of my heart. But before she could respond, her friend's laughter cut through the moment, throwing a shadow over everything. "You can't be serious, Lila. Don't forget who you are." In that instant, I realized, her struggle was not only about the diamonds and empty rooms. It was about learning to escape a world that suffocated her as much as my own life cramped me. With a final, pleading look, Lila bit her lip, and in that single gesture, I felt the weight of our unspoken connection drift into the air. As I turned to leave, the door to the ballroom creaked open. A gust of wind rushed through, catching my breath. I glanced back one last time, only to find Lila gazing toward me, her face a mix of determination and dread. In that fleeting moment, I was struck by an unexpected realization. This could be the start of our journey, a path that could change everything or seal our fates forever. And as the door clicked shut behind me, a voice in my heart whispered a strange possibility: something fractured, something profound, awaited us just beyond the horizon. The next day dawned with a hesitant light, as if the sun itself were unsure about embracing the world. I had spent the night wrestling with anticipation and fear. Would Lila show up? I found myself glancing at my phone every few seconds, hoping for a message that might ease the tight knots of uncertainty in my stomach. Finally, the clock struck 11. The coffee shop was modest but warm, an inviting little nook nestled between larger, harsher buildings. I settled in a corner, purposely choosing a table where I could observe the door, both anxious and eager for her arrival. Minutes slipped by, stretching like taffy. Just as I was about to convince myself that perhaps she would not come, the door swung open. Lila stepped in, and for a second, the world around me faded. She looked different here, away from the glitter and glamour. The cozy surroundings softened the sharp edges of her high-status life. The flush of uncertainty danced across her cheeks, and her eyes darted around the room, searching for something or someone to anchor her. "Hey," I called gently, waving her over. When our gazes met, a hint of a smile broke through her apprehension. She approached, glancing around as if she half expected to be followed by the judgmental eyes of her old world. "Thank you for coming," I said, my voice steady despite my pounding heart. "I wasn't sure if I would," she admitted, sinking into the chair across from me, a small storm of emotions swirling in her gaze. But I needed to try to understand. I could tell this was not easy for her. It was the kind of honesty that bore the weight of countless unshed tears, a realization that she craved something real, yet stood tangled in her own life's web. "What do you want to understand?" I prompted, leaning in, eager to delve deeper. "I look around, and I see everyone wearing masks," she began, her voice low and shaky. "Every conversation feels scripted, rehearsed. I can't help but feel trapped, like I'm an actress in a play where I don't even know my lines." Her vulnerability took my breath away. "It must be exhausting," I said softly. "Pretending to live a life that doesn't feel like yours." A single tear slipped from her eye, and she quickly brushed it away, but it had already broken a barrier. "Sometimes, I wish I could trade everything, the parties, the money, for a moment of freedom. To just exist. To be me." The sincerity was almost painful, each word striking a chord within me. "I wish I could show you that freedom," I whispered, feeling something within me shift. "There's so much beauty in the ordinary. Each moment, raw and unfiltered, holds the power to heal." She looked at me with a newfound intensity, and in that gaze, I saw the stirrings of hope. "Then show me. Show me what you mean." And just like that, the world outside receded, our small table becoming an oasis in a river of noise and expectations. For the first time, I felt a sense of urgency bubbling within me, a need to escape our current lives together, if only for a moment. "Okay," I replied, my heart racing with the thrill of adventure. "Let us leave here and just walk. No destination, just wherever the day takes us. We'll find out what life is when we see it through each other's eyes." She hesitated, glancing outside as if the shadows from her past were lurking just beyond the doorframe. But then she nodded, her determination surfacing. The weight of fear lifted, and in its place bloomed something brighter, the possibilities stretching out before us like an unwritten chapter that we stepped into the sunlight together. The city felt new beneath our feet as we wandered aimlessly through bustling streets. She laughed at the street performers, her face illuminated with genuine joy. I felt a warmth spreading through me. It was exhilarating to watch her shed the layers that had sheltered her heart for so long. As we stopped to get ice cream, she turned to me, eyes sparkling with mischief. "Here's a challenge. What's the most outrageous thing you've done in your life?" I paused, wondering how to convey the years of hardships and the moments of rebellion that felt small compared to hers. "I once painted an entire fence bright orange without permission," I admitted, chuckling at the absurdity of it all. Lila burst into laughter, her voice ringing like a chime in the open air. "That's amazing. I don't think I've ever done anything spontaneous like that." "Well, it's never too late to start," I encouraged, feeling a kinship growing between us, a thread of understanding weaving us closer with each shared story. But just as the sun reached its zenith, illuminating our newfound friendship, her phone buzzed, breaking the spell. She glanced down, her expression faltering as she read a message. The light in her eyes dimmed. "It's my mother," she murmured. "She wants me to come home right away. There's an event tonight." I felt disappointment wash over me. The bubble we had created began to burst under the weight of reality. You should go, I said, surprised to find that my voice was steady, despite the ache in my chest. I wouldn't want to keep you from your responsibilities. But I don't want to go, she confessed, her words spilling out, panic mounting. I want to stay here, with you. I thought this was different. It feels different. It is. I swallowed hard, struggling against the wave of despair threatening to drown me. But you have your life, Lila. I don't want to pull you away. And I don't want to be the reason you fight your family. Her eyes shimmered with tears, and my heart broke a little more. What if I don't know how to go back? She whispered, and I could see the uncertainty gnawing at her. Then, we'll figure it out together, I replied, reaching across the table to take her hand, feeling the warmth of her skin against mine, a fleeting connection that felt both electric and ethereal. But just then, her phone buzzed again, this time more insistent, echoing the urgent call of the life she was trying to escape. With trembling fingers, she picked it up, reading the screen with a grim expression. Just as she was about to put it away, her breath caught. It's my father. Her face paled. He says it's urgent. I have to. Before she could finish, I felt my own heart race at the sensation of impending loss. Lila was caught in a vortex, pulled back to the distraction of her world just as we had begun to untangle its grip. Lila, wait, I have to go. She exclaimed, nearly stumbling backward, panic rising. I can't keep avoiding them. I thought maybe today could be different. But I'm here for you, I managed to say, my hope threading through the fissures of our shared moment. No matter where you go or what life throws at you. Her expression softened, but hesitation still lingered in her eyes. With a deep breath, she nodded. I'll be back. I promise. Just give me time. Just as she turned to leave, the door swung open once more, and in that instant, my breath caught in my throat. A tall figure stepped in, sharply dressed, exuding authority. Lila's father. Recognition washed over me, blending with dread. It was the face of the world I had witnessed at the party, a life I understood all too well but had hoped to shield Lila from. Lila! He bellowed, spotting her at the back of the café, and the warmth of our encounter shattered like glass. I felt the chill creep back into the air, the barriers rising again as our moment of connection hung precariously in the balance. With wide eyes, she turned to me, and in that heartbeat, I knew she was at a crossroads between her two worlds, the gilded cage and the promise of freedom. As Lila took a hesitant step back towards her father, I knew that whatever happened next could either drive her away from me or entangle us deeper in a bond fraught with complexity. I was rooted to the spot, unable to move, holding a flicker of her promise like a fragile flame in my heart, the chance for something profound amidst the chaos of our lives. But the flames would need nurturing, and only time would tell if they would ever catch fire. The chaos that erupted in the café felt like the wind had whipped through our sanctuary, sweeping away the tender moments we had built. Lila stood frozen, caught between her father's piercing gaze and the flicker of defiance I'd seen in her before. The world constricted around us, as if the air itself recognized the heaviness of the impending confrontation. Lila, what are you doing here? Her father thundered, moving towards her with an authority that demanded immediate submission. She stumbled over her words, looking back at me as if I held the answers to all her questions. Her eyes were wide, betraying an internal tempest that spiraled far beyond the chaotic moments we had just shared. I wanted desperately to comfort her, but with her father's presence looming, I felt powerless. It's just coffee, Dad, she finally managed, her voice surprisingly steady despite the storm brewing in her gaze. I needed a break from everything. Everything? He echoed, disbelief coloring his tone. You think running off into the city with this, who even is he? He dismissed me with a wave, wrongfully reducing me to a mere distraction in his daughter's life. Fury ignited within me, but I remained at the table, holding tightly to the delicate thread of understanding that had woven itself between Lila and me. I'm just a friend, I said, my voice steady, fully aware I was stepping into a fray that was not my own. A friend? He laughed, but it was devoid of humor. You call this a friendship? Lila, do you really think this man is good for you? Stop it. Lila snapped, her voice fiercer than I had ever heard it. In that moment, she was not the lost girl I had met in the café, she was a force of nature, fighting back against the restraints of her life. You don't even know him. Her statement hung in the air, creating a crack in the fortress her father had built around their conversation. I felt the weight of the room shift, but before I could process the moment, Lila's father stepped forward, his expression turning serious. Lila, your future is at stake. You have responsibilities, expectations. You can't just run off with someone who has no idea of your world. He glanced at me, a thinly veiled threat lacing his words. I want to let you throw it all away. She flinched at his harshness, and for a moment, somewhere deep beneath the tumultuous surface, I caught a glimpse of the little girl who once craved her father's approval, now battling the call of her own instincts. I'm not throwing anything away. I'm just trying to find out who I am, she countered, voice shaking with emotion. You're the one who has always wanted me to fit into this perfect mold. What if I don't want to be that girl anymore? The cafe had fallen silent, patrons immersed in this unexpected drama, but I could see that escaping was not going to be simple anymore. Lila's father, face set in determination, reached for Lila's arm, his grip tightening as if to drag her back to the life she longed to escape. Enough. He barked. We're leaving. Right now. A pang of desperation rushed through me. I couldn't bear to see her retreat into that stifling world again. With each attempt of her father to steer her away, I felt the weight of possibility slipping through my fingers. Lila, please, I said, standing up now, urgency coloring my voice. You don't have to go with him. You're not a puppet. She looked at me, eyes shimmering with unshed tears, the pull between our connection and her obligations pulling her in two directions. Her father's grip tightened, but I didn't care, I needed her to understand that there was another way, another life waiting just outside their narrative. Think about what you really want, Lila. I pressed, my heart racing now with fear and hope. You deserve to chase after the person who wants to live, who wants to experience life in all its messiness. For a second, time froze. I held my breath, wishing with every fiber of my being that she would choose to walk away from that confinement and toward the unknown with me. Get your hands off her, I heard myself say, the words tumbling out before I could fully comprehend the confrontation I was inciting. My heart raced as I prepared for his reaction. Lila's father's eyes flared with incredulity, but then he turned sharply to Lila, his expression shifting into something colder. Do you truly want to embarrass yourself and the family like this? The reality of the situation crashed down around me, and I understood the depth of his words. It wasn't just about the conflict between Lila's desire for independence and her father's expectations. It was about family, reputation, and a life built on image, a web far more tangled than I had anticipated. Lila's face turned a shade paler, but the determination I'd seen ignite within her wouldn't go out. No one is embarrassed, but I can't continue to pretend anymore. She shouted. Despite her father's grip, a spark of resolve flared in her eyes, and for a moment, I thought she might break free, but then a shattering noise filled the cafe. A glass tipped over at another table and shattered, sending shards flying. All heads turned, chaos, unintended and sudden, filling the air. In that brief distraction, Lila's father seized the moment, gripping her arm and pulling her towards the door, his words growing sharper. We are leaving. Now. My heart hammered as uncertainty rose within me, underlined by the gnawing fear that I had miscalculated the strength of her resolve, that the pull of her old life would drag her back before she could make a choice for herself. Lila. I yelled, but it dissolved into the chaos of muffled conversations, tension thick and suffocating. She hesitated, looking back at me, the anguish printed clear on her face. I'll come back. She shouted, though her voice was now softer, trembling against the tidal force of her father's demands. The door swung shut behind them, the sound echoing through the café like a damning verdict. My heart sank, the void left in Lila's absence expanding inside me. I wanted to scream, to run after her, but deep down, I recognized that I couldn't forcibly pull her from the chains that bound her if she wanted to break free. She had to make that choice herself. As I stood there, surrounded by the remnants of our conversation, laughter, vulnerability, and fleeting moments of connection, something within me quietly fractured, hinting at the intense reality of the path yet to come. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket, a shrill contrast to the heavy silence. But when I pulled it out and saw the name on the screen, I felt dread pool at the pit of my stomach. It was a message from an unknown number, but it had an urgent tone that sent shivers down my spine. Meet me. I have something important to tell you about Lila. My mind raced as I read the message again, heart thundering not just for what it might mean but for the potential unraveling of everything that had begun between us. What more could be hidden in the shadows of her life? As I stepped out of the café, the weight of Lila's absence hung heavy in the air, but with the enigmatic message still pulsing in my hand, I knew that whatever I found could change everything. The choices were widening, openings leading into the unknown, and the truth beckoned me forward, despite the fear bubbling deep inside. The streets felt surreal as I wandered, disconnecting from the moments that shimmered and intertwined just hours ago in that café. I could still see Lila's fiery spirit, the way her resolve flared like a beacon amid the storm her father had whipped up. But shadows cloaked the city around me, reminding me of her father's words that had rattled the very core of our burgeoning connection. What I thought stemming from mere opposition seemed interwoven with intricacies far too delicate for an outsider like me to decipher. My fingers trembled slightly with each step, practically clutching Lila's promise that she would return. I was suffocated by anticipation, the uncertainty clawing at my insides like a relentless tide. What did that text even mean? Who could possibly have important news about her? Was it a warning or a hope? I scanned around, my heart thundering, every alley and passerby suddenly feeling charged with significance. The reply came fast, a simple street address that sent me skidding to a halt. Swallowing back a mixture of dread and intrigue, I redirected my path. The city loomed ahead with savory and stale scents mingling into a chaotic tapestry that resembled the very emotions swirling within me. I approached a worn-out building, staring up at its peeling paint and cracked windows. It felt worlds apart from the polished reality of Lila's life, a place where secrets could fester, where untold stories could be shared behind closed doors. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the door handle as doubts raced through my mind. What was I even doing? A sliver of optimism pushed me forward. If I could uncover even a fragment of the truth, maybe I could help Lila emerge from the shadow of her father's expectations. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit hallway that smelled faintly of dampness and something sweet, reminiscent of bygone dreams. There was a warmth in the air, a mix of floral and spices that made it oddly comforting as my eyes adjusted to the low light. Each step felt heavy, carrying with it the weight of anticipation, not just for the unveiling of Lila's hidden life, but for my own readiness to dive deeper into her world. I rounded a corner and stumbled upon a small room filled with mismatched furniture, an array of plants thriving despite the dimness around them. And sitting on a rickety chair was a woman, her sun-streaked hair cascading around her shoulders, a serene smile gracing her features. She radiated a calm that contrasted sharply with the storm raging inside me. "Lila spoke very highly of you," she said softly, gesturing for me to take a seat. "I believe you're the friend she needed in her corner." "Who are you?" I asked, bewildered both by her acknowledgement of me and by the sudden burst of hope her presence elicited. "I'm her mother," she replied, and for a moment, the world around me fell silent, astonished by the revelation. "You're—" I stammered, my heart racing. "But I thought she said she hasn't known me for quite some time," she interrupted gently, her eyes glistening with an unspoken sadness. "Lila and her father have built walls around their relationship that grew too high even for me to breach. But I always kept an eye on her, always hoping that one day, but these walls were too formidable, and there were choices I had to make." I finally settled into a chair, processing this unanticipated flood of emotions crashing over me. "You care for her?" "More than anyone could ever know," she whispered, a tremor weaving through her voice. But I had to let her find her way, just as I had no choice but to leave when things were too volatile. I wanted her to learn the strength of her own voice, to discover the kind of life she wants just as I had to. But she is struggling, and her father is the one pulling her back. What do I need to know? I pressed, my urgency spilling over. Lila is treading dangerous waters, her mother implored. Her father has plans for her that run deeper than you could imagine. If she gives in to his expectations, she might lose herself entirely. I had to message you because I'm worried about what he could do to keep her within that world. My mind whirred with the implications of her words. The clock was ticking, and I had to find a way to reach Lila amidst the chaos of her father's oppressive grip. What can I do? I asked, desperation coloring my tone. You must show her the life she craves, her mother replied, a spark of determination flickering in her eyes. Time is not on our side. If she feels the pressure mounting, she might retreat further into her father's grasp. You are strong, and she needs that strength. Share with her not just your friendship but the life beyond all of this sanctuary of comfort, and the freedom to be who she really is. As we spoke, an idea nestled within my mind, a path emerging amidst uncertainty. The air crackled with a promise, a chance for Lila to find her voice again, rekindle the flicker of defiance I had seen before. But I needed to face her father as well, who lingered like a shadow, ready to thwart any glimmer of hope. Just as I rose to leave, a sudden crash echoed from outside the building, chilling the air. Startled, I turned to the window. My heart dropped as I spotted Lila standing there, a few yards away, her eyes darting back and forth, filled with unfiltered anxiety. Lila! I called out, but the chaos from the street drowned my words. Her father followed closely behind her, his angry voice reverberating through the air, demanding obedience, but she shook her head defiantly. Go. Go to her. Lila's mother urged, and in that heartbeat, I understood that everything hung in the balance. I raced outside, pushing through the threshold of the worn building, anxiety coursing through me as I ran towards her. The world narrowed down to that raw moment, every heartbeat counting down to the uncertainty of how this encounter would unfold. A swirling storm awaited, and the battle for her independence was about to begin. The cacophony of the street enveloped me as I charged toward Lila, my heart pounding like a drum. She was there, a vision of resilience against the darkness that her father intended to cast over her life. Her eyes, normally so vibrant, were filled with fear of the man behind her, fear of the choices that lay ahead, and maybe even fear of what I would say as the chaos unfolded. Lila! I yelled again, weaving between bodies, desperation propelling me forward. I had never seen the full brunt of her turmoil until this very moment, heightened by her father's looming presence and the way he commanded the spaces around him. Get back, Lila! He commanded, eyes flashing like something monstrous, as if trying to contain the wild spirit of his own child. You're not going anywhere. It was in this terrifying moment, amidst the throng of rushing pedestrians and the world I thought I'd understood, that my resolve solidified. She needed me now, no matter the risk of enraging her father. Leave her alone. I shouted, my pulse thrumming wildly. Stay out of this. This isn't your concern, he snapped, and underneath his bravado, I could see the raw desperation to maintain his grip. The authority he wielded felt almost suffocating, a storm threatening to engulf the both of us. Lila, I pleaded, moving closer even as her father fumed, come with me. We can talk, get out of here. For a heartbeat, time stood still. Her gaze flickered between her father and me, a silent war raging within her. It felt like I was standing between the past she feared and the future she was yearning for, but I had to be strong. As I took another step forward, a small glimmer of belief sparked in her expression, haunting yet hopeful, and then, as if a dam had burst open, she took a step away from her father and toward me. I want to go, she said, her voice steadier than I expected. Lila! You'll regret this. Her father shouted, but his threatening tone only seemed to propel her closer to me. I reached my hand toward her, heart racing, fighting against the urge to look back and see how far he might be willing to go to keep her tethered to him. Let her make her own choices, I replied, gripping her hand. You don't own her. In that moment, Lila clutched my hand tighter, her fingers weaving through mine as if their touch alone could anchor her amid the tumult raging around us. A flicker of rebellion burned in her spirit, and I could feel it pulse between us, a promise of courage against the odds. Her father erupted, his anger boiling over into the space around us. You think she belongs in a world like yours? You have no idea what you're asking. This isn't just about your selfish whims. Think of the future, the legacy. With those words bubbling over, Lila turned to me and, for the first time, I truly recognized the weight resting upon her shoulders. Life's burdens are heavier than mere responsibilities, they are chains that can bind a person indefinitely. I don't want that. She exclaimed, eyes locked on her father's. I want to choose for myself, even if it means stepping into the unknown. No. He shouted, his hand clenching into a fist. You'll destroy everything I've worked for. You'll become just like, but she cut him off. Just like who? Just like you. Stifled and controlled. I refuse to live in fear of your expectations any longer. I could see her breathing, deeply and rhythmically, summoning every ounce of willpower against the looming specter of her father's influence. The once overwhelming specter now seemed to shrink under the sheer force of her determination. Lila, I murmured, and she turned to me, her eyes glistening with unspoken emotions. Whatever you decide, I'm here, I said quietly, a promise that thrummed like a heartbeat, but just as hope edged a little closer, her father's face contorted with rage, a furious tempest that suggested he was prepared to unleash devastation instead of surrendering to her voice. Then, as though hearing the unspoken call, other figures emerged around us, people who recognized the growing tension, their eyes shifting from Lila to her father as curiosity morphed into concern. Step away from her, one man finally spoke up, his tone firm. You can't keep doing this. This isn't right. And in that moment, something shifted. The shadows surrounding us began to retreat, flanked not by a lone force, but by a crowd that pushed against the freeze he had imposed on Lila's life. It began to crack, a fissure where hope could seep through, slowly expanding like the dawn breaking on a darkened day. But just as the tide turned, Lila's father reached out, his grim expression mingling with desperation. You think this will end well for her? She is simply throwing it all away for a dream. Dreams can't pay the bills. The crowd grew restless, the murmurings quickening. Caution rippled through them, concern rippling through the hearts of those bearing witness. But Lila's eyes were fixed on mine, and I nodded, inviting her to take this leap into the unknown. Why don't you listen to her for once? I challenged her father, the city thrumming with energy. She deserves a chance to live, I pressed on, to know what it feels like to dream without limits. In that charged moment, we stood as one, a small pocket of rebellion amid the expected indifference. But before I could revel in the quiet stirring of triumph building within me, I saw something. Her father's eyes flickered, and a glint of something metallic slipped from his coat, catching the dim light just as it fell. Time stuttered, and I realized too late what it was as it hit the pavement, a small, black device that clattered, the screen lighting up with a warning. My heart stopped as the realization washed over me. This device could send a pulse through the city, a warning not just for us but for the life Lila had fought to break free from. No, I whispered in horror, watching as the world shifted yet again, threading a new network of uncertainty among the people who encircled us. As shadows lengthened, and anxiety settled like a cold mist, the boundaries between us and the future began to blur, leaving naught but an enigma fluttering beyond reach. I turned to face Lila, our palms still intertwined, a flicker of purpose amid the flickering night. Would courage be enough this time? The air trembled with unanswered questions, and just as fear laced my stomach, I knew we were only beginning to understand the depths of what it meant to be truly free. The echoes of the city swirled around us, but all I could focus on was the faint glow of the device, its menacing pulse casting shadows on Lila's face. The crowd, which moments ago had rallied with newfound strength, fell silent, a collective breath held in uncertainty. Fear was like a living thing, creeping into the spaces between us, threatening to snuff out the fragile flicker of rebellion we had ignited. "What is that?" Lila's voice trembled, laced with apprehension as her gaze darted from the device back to her father. There was a flicker of fear in her eyes, the kind that sent chills down my spine. "It's nothing," he replied too quickly, desperation leaking through his facade. "It's just a precaution." But the way his eyes shifted, unable to hold my gaze, revealed the truth. Whatever that device was, it was his last effort to exert control over the situation. "Let us get away from here," I urged, adrenaline pumping through my veins. The uncertainty in the crowd turned murky, a darkness descending as curiosity twisted into suspicion. I looked around, searching for an escape route, but the throng felt like a prison, engulfing us in a collective anxiety. "No." Lila's voice was surprisingly steadier now, a splash of conviction against the rising tide of chaos. "I'm not running anymore. I want to face this." Her resolve hit me like a jolt, almost grounding me in this storm of emotion. But I could also see the weight of her decision, the enormity of what lay ahead. "Lila," I started, but she squeezed my hand tighter, and I knew she needed me to trust her. "You don't understand," her father sneered, his voice low and shadowy, laced with threats. "You're deluded if you think you can run away from who you are. You'll be back on your knees, begging for your place in this world. Just like your mother." The word struck like a physical blow. I saw Lila's expression falter, a flicker of vulnerability crossing her face. The mention of her mother unleashed a torrent of unspoken pain buried deep within her. The world around us faded a little as we grappled with the weight of that truth. "My mother was the strongest person I ever knew," Lila said, her voice firm, though it quivered slightly. "And she wouldn't want me trapped in a life I didn't choose. Love is about freedom, not control." The crowd murmured again, and slowly, a hardened resolve began to take shape around Lila. Her father's face twisted as he searched for words to dismiss her. "How can you talk about love when you haven't an inkling of what's at stake? You think your dreams are worth sacrificing everything for?" But Lila's gaze only sharpened, becoming a lighthouse through the encroaching storm. "I'm willing to risk everything for my choice. I deserve that chance. I won't let fear dictate my life anymore." The air in the space around us crackled, each heartbeat a defiant thrum against the darkness her father embodied. And just as I began to sense hope blooming once more, the device on the ground pulsed ominously, a silent warning that did not know how to cower in the face of this new tide. For a moment, the world felt suspended between Lila's courage and her father's rage. Then, abruptly, the device blared to life, a siren, a chilling wail that cut through the crowd. Eyes darted back toward it, some beginning to pull away, as shouts began to rise around us like a fever pitch. "Flee! Get out!" someone shouted, panic blooming in the faces of the onlookers. The crowd began to disperse, confusion swirling like storm clouds. My heart raced. We were losing our moment of connection, our fragile bridge built on shared courage. "Lila!" I shouted, desperately pulling her closer just as bubbling fear erupted. "We need to go before," but it was too late. Lila's father lunged forward, eyes wild with desperation, his hand reaching for the device on the ground. "No!" Lila cried, instinctively stepping in front of me, protectively. Time slowed as I could see the determination flash in her eyes. This was her battle, her moment, as she steeled herself against all that her father represented. "You won't take this from me!" Lila yelled, the sound of her voice rallying what little strength remained in the throng. Yet, just as I thought we had summoned the last remnants of courage amidst chaos, her father managed to grasp the device, his grip unyielding. "You'll regret this!" he screamed, fury boiling over as he pressed a button. The air went electric, and in an instant, everything changed. A blinding flash of light erupted from the device, spilling harrowing shadows across the faces of those around us, washing over Lila and me in something between hope and despair. Gasps filled the air, but as the collapse of color swallowed us whole, I caught a glimpse of something I never could have anticipated. Lila's father was not just a man desperate to maintain control, he was also desperate to protect the chaos unraveling before him. I didn't mean for it to go this far, he stammered, fear shadowing his face, which had hardened into something unreadable too many years ago, and in that moment, a new layer of complexity broke through the surface of what had felt so black and white. But with the glowing device still blaring, I realized we were no closer to safety or to understanding. As I prepared to take Lila's hand again, the world swirled in a kaleidoscope of confusion, leaving us at the precipice of an unexpected choice, teetering on the edge of two divergent paths. Would her father relent, or would the shadows he cast over her life threaten to eclipse all her dreams? In the chaos, I felt an unmistakable truth: just when it seemed hope was within reach, despair reminded us of its resilience. The blinding glow faded, leaving behind a surreal stillness that enveloped the angry murmur of the crowd. Lila shifted closer, her breath shaky as she whispered, "What just happened?" I could feel her heart racing against my palm like a frantic bird trying to escape. "I don't know," I replied, scanning our surroundings. The device lay dormant now, a hollow shell of its earlier menace. But the look on Lila's father's face, torn between anger and vulnerability, was etched on my mind. We weren't just battling him, we were unearthing layers of buried pain, spelling out why we were all caught in this twisted game. "Are you okay?" I asked, desperate to find reassurance in Lila's eyes. She nodded but didn't pull away from my side, and a flicker of sadness danced across her face. "We need to figure out what he's planning. If he feels cornered, anything could happen." Just then, a surge of voices surged near us, and I noticed one figure moving steadily against the tide of panic. Janie, a friend from the protest, made her way through throngs of uncertain faces. "Lila. I'm so glad I found you," she said, her eyes wide with urgency. They've spotted guards moving through the streets. There's no time to waste." Lila's father had begun to gather himself, shaking his head as if trying to eradicate the emotions swirling there. However, the brief flicker of pain I had seen had left a mark on him, glimmers of desperation lurking in his gaze. He would fight, that much was clear, but now I couldn't shake the feeling that he too was a player in a game larger than him. "Janie." Lila turned to her friend, determination igniting in her voice. "We need a plan. We can't let him use that device again." Janie nodded, her expression intense. "There's a safe house a few streets over. We can regroup and make sense of all this. They won't follow us if we're quick." I felt the weight of Lila's hand in mine, steady as a metronome, but every glance back showed her father caught in turmoil, his mind racing, the internal conflict wrestling for control. I started to see the man underneath the fearsome demeanor, realizing that perhaps we weren't just facing the clock of escape, but also the essence of what family meant amidst betrayal. "Lila," I began, knowing we would need to confront him at some point, but she met my gaze, and I saw an unyielding spirit therein. She was ready to move forward, even if it meant forging a path to replace a war with understanding. "Let us go," she said, her voice low but firm. I nodded, and together we slipped through the crowd and into the narrow alleyways of the city, where shadows whispered secrets and courage urged us on. Each step felt like breaking through unseen barriers, new passages opening up as the chaos behind us dulled into a distant echo. As we hurried through the winding streets, I could hear murmurs of support from the locals, shouts of defiance against the oppressive regime. It sparked an ember of hope within me, a reminder that change often blooms in the unlikeliest of places, amidst uncertainty and fear. We arrived at the safe house, a dimly lit basement tucked between two crumbling buildings. It was harsh but at least concealed. We settled into the grime and clutter, a mix of old crates and forgotten aspirations. We gathered around a large table, where old maps lay strewn alongside discarded plans for resistance. "Okay, we need to devise a strategy," Janie urged, diving into the notes. "The device is connected to his program. If we're going to stand a chance against him." Lila suddenly broke in, her voice steadying the room. "What if there's a way to turn it against him? We know he's vulnerable. This could be our path to break his grip on us. There was all wrapped in her idea an unexpected thrill at the thought of using her father's desperation against him. The jaws of doubt crept into my mind until they were grounded by how truly brave Lila was in that moment. She was willing to acknowledge the monster while standing firmly under its shadow, but then a hollow knock echoed against the door, shaking us from our discussions. The simple sound sent shards of worry racing down my spine. "Stay quiet," I murmured, fear clawing at the edges of my resolve. Lila's face had turned pale, and for the first time, I could see how deeply the weight of this fight had pressed upon her. "What if it's him?" she whispered, her voice barely more than a breath. "Or someone else." "We can't rule out anyone," Janie added, her eyes darting involuntarily toward the door. The atmosphere thickened like fog as we reflected on our alternatives, so close yet so perilously distant from what lay ahead. Then the knocking came again, more insistent this time. "Lila." "It's me." A voice echoed through. It was familiar, but also haunting in its urgency. "Please let me in." Lila's eyes widened, and recognition lit her features. "That's Sam. He should be safe, he was supposed to stay far away from here. Let him in." The command came from somewhere deep within my heart. Sam was the last piece of our fragmented world, a connection to what had once been normal. We need every ally we can get. The decision haunted us as we braced for impact. Would he bring hope or more trouble? In desperation, Lila opened the door, and I held my breath, awaiting the echo of echoes, the revelation of the unexpected, uncertain whether this would crack our world open into greater pain or plunge us deeper into a war we were only beginning to comprehend. The door swung open slowly, revealing Sam's anxious face, dirt smudged across his brow and panic etched in his eyes. "Lila." He rushed inside, closing the door behind him as if the shadows of the outside world might creep in without his vigilance. "Are you okay?" Lila stepped forward, concern wrapping around her like a warm blanket. Sam nodded, but I could see the tremor in his hands as he leaned against the wall, struggling to catch his breath. "Not for long. They're searching for you. I overheard them talking about the device. Your father is offering a reward for anyone who finds you both." His urgent whisper filled the cramped space, amplifying the tension that hung in the air. The weight of those words crushed down on us, each syllable echoing with dread. We knew her father was relentless. This was his war against not just us, but against himself, a war rooted in unprocessed grief and a manipulation of power. "We can't hide forever," Janie said, biting her lip as she surveyed the group. "We have to strike first." Her voice was steady, but I could hear the rising cadence of fear beneath it. "Not like that," Sam interjected, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. "We need to have a plan. We could use all the information we can gather before making our next move." "Information?" I found myself saying before I could think. "What kind of information? And what do you suggest?" Sam hesitated, collecting his thoughts like fallen leaves in a storm. "I was at the old warehouse when I heard them discussing the device. They're working on something big, something dangerous." "Let us go there," Lila said, fire igniting anew in her chest. "It could give us the leverage we need." "Are you nuts?" Sam's voice rose with concern. "What if they recognize you?" "It's too risky." "But at this point, staying hidden might be more dangerous," Janie countered, her steely gaze unwavering. "We have to outsmart them, take risks. Lila's father has been hiding behind this device for too long. We have to expose him." As we argued, something caught my eye, a shadow flitting past the basement's window. My heart raced, each subsequent second ticking away like a countdown. "We don't have much time." "Okay," Sam relented, the acceptance settling in with resignation. "But we have to be smart. Stealth. Surprise. We might have the element of surprise, but if we're reckless we won." TB, Lila said, all action now, energy radiating from her like a beacon. "Let us move while we still can." We gathered our wits and what little supplies we had. Clutching old maps, a handful of flashlights, and reminders of what we were fighting for: freedom, connection, the beautiful bewilderment of living outside of fear, we shoved everything into a worn backpack. I watched Lila, her nerves unfurling into strength with every passing moment. The streets outside were tense with unease, lights flickering under the strain of uncertainty. We navigated the familiar streets, anxious glances exchanged, pooling the fragments of our friendship together as we stepped into danger. With every corner turned, my stomach knotted tighter. Thoughts of her father gnawed at my resolve, memories of laughter slipping into the shadows just as we would soon fall into desolation. Lila moved purposefully ahead of us, a captain steering her ship into stormy waters, unaware perhaps of the tumult wrestling within. That we reached the warehouse, its looming presence both ominous and strangely inviting, like a gaping maw ready to swallow us whole. The air crackled with electricity, the kind that felt like the calm before catastrophe's embrace. "Remember," Sam cautioned. "Stay low, keep quiet. Follow my lead." Inside, darkness sprawled like a living thing, swallowing the edges of our fears. Sam found a flashlight and switched it on, illuminating broken crates and remnants of machinery, the echoes of history trapped within rusting metal. The distant hum of voices stirred around us, oscillating like a heartbeat. We crept forward, our breaths synchronized in urgent whispers until the voices crystallized into something tangible: a heated discussion about the very device that had enslaved us. My heart raced as we found a vantage point behind a stack of crates and glanced down at a small group of figures illuminated by flickering overhead lights. "If they discover what we're working on," one man's voice trailed off, sending icy chills down my spine. "Are you kidding?" "We can't hold back now," another voice, razor-edged with determination, retorted. "Once we activate the harness, there's no turning back. The city will fall, and with it, any chance of dissenting voices." I met Lila's gaze, understanding dawning in our shared silence. This wasn't just a battle for her father's reign, it was a play for control over our collective fates. Just as I opened my mouth to suggest moving back for safety, a sudden crash echoed from the opposite side of the warehouse. A door burst open, and guards flooded in, their presence like a storm front shifting dark clouds overhead. "Get down!" Lila's quick reflex drew us all to the floor as chaos erupted. In that chaos, my heart lurched into an abyss of despair. How close we had come, only to find ourselves trapped by the very realities we sought to dismantle. Our world was no longer made of illusions but was bleeding raw, and every tick of the clock pressed upon me like an assertion time was slipping away. That I glanced at Lila, hope mingling with fear, a dance of light and dark playing out in the depths of our shared silence. The window for escape began to close, and I couldn't shake the sensation that this was merely the beginning. But then, amid all the turmoil, something broke: a voice from the back of the crowd, a familiar silhouette stepping forward. "Stop this!" It was the last person I expected to see, and as Sam's eyes widened with shock, clarity blazed violently against the chaos. "Dad?" Lila's voice cracked, veering from disbelief to dread. The world spun beneath our feet. Could this be the redemption we hoped for, or a betrayal that would shackle us forever? The tension in the warehouse could be cut with a knife, the once familiar ebbs and flows of our breaths now strained as the realization sank in. Lila's father stood before us, anger and pain radiating from him like an inevitable storm. The chaos of the guards and the ominous conference around them faded. His presence transformed the very air we breathed. "What do you think you're doing here?" he barked, firm yet infused with desperation. His eyes were wild, unsteady as they flicked between Lila and the group huddled behind the crates, revealing the cracks in his facade of control. "I've come to stop you," Lila replied, her voice steadier than I felt. "You can't keep using that device to manipulate and control. This isn't about power, it's about people, real lives, Dad." Even now, she was breaking through his sharp edges, each word finding purchase on the tender space lingering between them, the ghost of the little girl still fighting inside. That he shook his head, clearly struggling between the pull of authority and the visible agony that seeped from his very being. "You don't understand. This is for your safety, your future. You think you know what's best, but you don't see the bigger picture. Lila's eyes shone with unshed tears, and it struck me that we were witnessing a battle both personal and profound. "You're blind," she said, voice trembling yet firm. "You've built a prison for yourself and for me. You only see power written in the shadows of your own fears, and it spills into every choice you make. You've lost sight of what I need: the freedom to choose." His expression softened for just a moment. Was it acknowledgement or remembrance, framed by the stark pain of truth? But before he could respond, the guards moved in closer, their grim presence a reminder of the stakes, forcing us back into survival mode. "This is your last chance, Lila," her father said sharply, his voice laced with an urgency that felt both protective and suffocating. "Come back with me, we can fix this." "No, Dad." Her voice rang out, fierce against the encroaching darkness. "You don't have to fix me. I'm not broken. You are, and it's time to face that." The intensity pulsed in the air as I felt the courage emanating from her. Every person in the room could feel the dauntless spirit of a daughter longing to be seen. The crowd of guards halted briefly, exchanging confused looks as the interplay of familial love and unyielding control unraveled before our eyes. "Enough of this." Her father's voice thundered, slipping back into the role of an authoritative figure, as if he had been built in stone. "You will regret this rebellion. Your future, your legacy will be lost for good. Take her." He motioned wildly, and chaos broke anew. The guards surged forward. But as they did, something deep inside me ignited. "No!" I cried, breaking free of the crowd's tension-filled whispers. "You will not take her." I stepped forward, positioning myself against the team of guards, my heart a frantic drum echoing the resolve surging in Lila's spirit. "Get away from her." It was a manifestation of everything I'd felt during our journey together: the pain, the friendships forged from ashes, and the sheer will that resided within us now ignited a flame. We were not alone in this. Themes of strength and vulnerability echoed all at once beneath the surface. The guards hesitated, eyes swerving toward Lila and her father, caught between loyalty and the unfolding truth. In just that moment of pause, I could feel the static shift. It wasn't just me or Lila fighting anymore. It was everyone connected through shared struggles and a yearning to break free. "Listen," I implored, holding Lila's gaze and channeling my fear into focus. "You may think power is scripted by legacy, but true power lies in choice. In love and support, not fear and control." The air crackled with anticipation, the crowd holding its collective breath. The guards broke ranks, and Lila stepped closer to me, anchoring the moment. "We are choosing to stand together. With every ounce of energy, every moment of love." And as the words escaped her, a wave washed over the room, an almost silent rallying cry forged from compassion and defiance. Slowly, I felt the metamorphosis ripple through the edges of her father's stoic exterior, cracks appearing in his armor where fear wavered, revealing flickers of understanding. "You," he breathed, barely whispering, watching his daughter transform all at once. "This isn't about me. This is about you." The recognition hanging in the air like a fragile thread, and then suddenly, it wasn't fear echoing in his eyes or commandeering gestures. It was longing, the desperate yearning of a father who had lost his way amidst power dynamics he felt compelled to uphold. Guilt and remorse battled with years of expectations. "I just wanted you safe," he began, words thick with years of silence. "No, Dad," Lila spoke softly now, her voice filling the void he had left empty for too long. "I want to be free, to make my own choices. I have to choose my battles, and I can't do that if you're fighting mine for me." And then all of that tension, all those years of misunderstanding, coiled up in the space between them, burst free like sunlight through clouds, illuminating shadows. In that one moment between fear and vulnerability, I saw a father ready to stumble toward understanding if guided by his daughter's courage, but the guards were still there, seeking to cling to the old narrative, rigid relationships threatening to suffocate the budding growth we had nurtured. I caught their leader's gaze, a glimmer of discontent sparking fear, perhaps even a flicker of hope. They were waiting for a cue from their commander, yet they paused, the distant murmurs echoed through the crowd now shifting towards acceptance. Our moment extended far beyond us, reaching into the heart of a struggle we all bore, and then in a surprising twist, Lila's father reached out, extending a trembling hand to her. The moment hung heavy, a transformative bridging between the past and the future, a father recognizing his daughter's autonomy. "Let me show you that I can be better," he whispered, eyes locked with hers, a sincerity raw and unveiled. "Let me be the father you deserve." Though the fear was still nestled deep in my chest, an unexpected lightness began to seep through. This was not the end, it felt like the beginning of hope, of narrative rebirth planted in the ashes of our shared turmoil. With her father taking that step, it was like the very fabric of the future stitched itself anew, weaving a path defined by connection rather than control. Lila's breath hitched, uncertainty mingling there with cautious optimism. The threads of hope blossomed beneath their gaze. "I want to trust you," she said, her voice soft yet unwavering against the weight of the world we faced. Then, as a gesture of solidarity and opportunity, I took Lila's hand, intertwining it with her father's, a bridge spanning the distance between estrangement and connection. "We can navigate this together," I murmured, feeling the power that coursed between us, a tapestry of love forged through resilience, and in that moment, the tide had shifted. Our choices were presented as glimmers of hope enveloped in alternate realities. The guards, recognizing the fracture of control, began to retreat, unsure of their place amidst this unfolding connection. "Let us build the future we want," I concluded, heart swelling in solidarity. Our world could transform yet again if we allowed the paths forged from courage and trust, and the dance between freedom and belonging, to guide us forward. Together we stepped out beyond the warehouse, a collective embodiment of freedom still in its infancy, a promise lingering in the air, the shadows receding, the dawn awaiting our decision, a new beginning unfolding before us. And as we stepped into the sunlight, my heart echoed the truth I had long searched for: love is a brave choice, and stepping into the unknown together can illuminate even the darkest of paths. "Now," I whispered to Lila, "the possibilities are endless." In that moment of interweaving destinies, I could finally see that the journey ahead was not just hers, or his or mine. It was all of us together, carving our own unique narrative against the backdrop of the world we chose to shape anew.